Okay, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today for MDR's webinar, Selling in a Challenging Environment, Practical Strategies for Finding Funds, Creating Value, and Closing Deals. Today we're focused on what's happening or not happening with education funding in this highly charged political and economic environment, and what that means for your business as we start a new school year. We'll also focus on how to optimize your sales and marketing strategies and position your business for success. A few comments before we dive into this information-packed session. All the sessions are being recorded, and the slides in the recording will be available to you tomorrow. And allow time for questions and answers at the end of the session, and we welcome you to submit a question anytime during the discussion using the question and answer tool in the lower right corner of your screen. We go through as many of the questions as we can during the session, but we'll also follow up with answers to every question we receive in the next couple days, and we'll post them on MDR's website, schoolday.com. We'll be let by email when all of these things are available. I'll introduce our presenters for today. I'd like to welcome Ann Wujcik, Senior Education Research Analyst at MDR, and is well known to many of you through her work on our EdNet services, delivering forward-looking market insight every year at the EdNet conference, which is coming up at the end of the month in Baltimore. And she also serves as the managing editor of our free weekly EdNet News Alert. Also an author and analyst of MDR's EdNet Insight services, provide research and analysis to help businesses with decision support. And has been an important voice in the education market throughout her career as a market researcher, a consultant, an author, and a teacher. So welcome once again, Ann, and thanks for being here. We're happy to be joined by Pat Walkington, who is a partner at Walkington Sugarman Education Sales Advisors. More than 20 years of experience creating, leading, and growing the education division of technology companies, and applies that valuable experience through her consulting business. Pat has sales and marketing in a number of education companies, including Learning Company, Broderbund Software, and Adaptive Curriculum, and today consults with many leading education businesses to help them drive effective sales and marketing strategies. Joining us today is Pat's partner at Walkington Sugarman Advisors, Sugarman. Larry has a long history leading sales office and education tech companies, working with software and SaaS companies for almost 40 years. Prior to forming his own sales training business, Smart Selling, Larry was a sales leader at Jostens Learning, and his consulting clients include Pearson, Dreambox, Apple, and IBM, among many others. Learning programs have helped over 2,500 sales professionals in the education market to improve their effectiveness and efficiency. Pat and Larry bring a tremendous amount of education market insight to their concrete strategies for selling when times are tough. So welcome to you both. So without further ado, let's dive into this interesting and valuable, timely content. Ann, I'll turn it over to you for education funding, stability on the horizon.
Sarah. Welcome, everyone. What I'm going to try to do today is present a quick overview of the current K-12 funding situation. You know, we talk about this a lot, and unfortunately, not much has changed. We talk a little bit about a few policy issues and then touch on some potential sources for information. And then I'm going to get out of the way and let Pat and Larry take center stage with a really solid tactical view how you operate in today's difficult market. As you can see from this title slide, I'm choosing to be just a bit optimistic about the market. I mean, you know, this is really one of those half-empty, half-full stories. But I think we are in an upward, a slowly upward trending market. Not that we're seeing a total recovery, certainly not that the schools are flush with cash, but simply that this school year should be stable. And for the last 3 years or so, that in itself is good news. So let's start. The education market. So, you know, people used to say to me, why is this such a big deal? Well, part of the reason education is such an important market, aside from the fact that it's important for our kids and for the future of our country, is that it's also a very big business. $625 billion was spent on 12 education in the 2011-2012 school year. Now, I really want you to remember from this slide is where that money is coming from. You see there are three main sources of funding: federal, state, and local dollars. Over the past 7 to 8 years, federal funding has accounted for roughly 10 to 11% of all money going into the K-12 system, whereas state and local funding has made up the other 89 to 90% of that funding. So two ways to look at this. The feds don't give us a whole lot, but they get a lot of bang for their buck. So keep those numbers in mind, and then let's look at some funding detail. The fiscal year starts on October 1st, so fiscal 2013 will begin on October 1, 2012. I wish they'd get these years aligned, but that's the way it is. Typically, Congress would be in the final stages right now of passing appropriations bills so that everything is in place for that October 1 start date. But we've had a typical budget cycle in a long time, at least 5 or 6 years. It's not unusual, as you all know, to start a new fiscal year without an approved budget in place. There was a time when that alone caused a crisis. Nobody even notices it anymore. It just gotten to be business as usual. And it looked like we might go that way again this year. But now it appears that Congress has agreed to pass a 6-month continuing resolution. So that will run from October 1, 2012 to the end of March 2013. Now that's really good news because it means a relatively stable and familiar federal funding environment. Continuing resolution is that everything is held at the previous year's budget levels, and the schools can be reassured that there are no big surprises waiting in the wings, as in the federal wings. Now, hopefully that deal will not fall apart before they get to vote on it sometime in the next few days. You know, they're back for a few days before they go out on their election break. So, but I don't think it's going to. And if it passes, it will go a long way taking a lot of uncertainty out of the system. And taking uncertainty away is always a plus where the schools are concerned. The effect of a CR means that the budget the Department of Education is operating under, the numbers you see in this middle column, are numbers that they will be using for the next school year as well, at least until April 1st, 2013. Now, after the CR expires at the end of March, depends to a large extent on who wins November's election and the overall strength of the economy by that time. I bet against big increases, and big cuts could be possible. It comes down to the dollars available, priorities set. No one in the Congress or the administration has been able to come up with an acceptable plan to address the deficit that is such a burden on the American economy. The threat of an across-the-board budget cut, formerly called sequestration, hangs over the federal budget. No one believes it's going to go into effect as it's currently mandated. Again, this is something that Congress is going to be dealing with sometime after the election and before the inauguration. But even if sequestration were to go into effect on January 2nd, 2013, with no changes, 7 to 9% across the board cuts, the Department of Education has made it clear that any cuts made would not impact schools until they begin the next school year. So schools will be safe until fall 2013. Another point for stability. I think we're in pretty good shape from the federal point of view. Another factor that's helped take some of the pressure off is the granting of waivers. The waivers are from specific requirements of No Child Left Behind. While states are going to continue to pursue most of NCLB's goals, they no longer have to ensure that all students are 100% proficient, and they no longer have to label schools as failing. They have plenty to do, and they're still going to be held accountable, but they've been given more flexibility to do as they see best. 33 states have received waivers, and there's at least one round anticipated, I think they're supposed to have their applications in by the end of this week. It's anticipated that most of the states who have not applied, the other 13 or 14 if you count the district, will be applying, and most of them will probably end up getting approved. As you can see, 33 out of 37. Now, there's no new money associated with waivers, but the 20% Title I set-aside that schools used to have to spend for choice and supplemental educational services has been freed up. Many states are talking about using that money to extend the learning experience, to extend the learning day, to expand learning time for struggling students. And that might possibly open some opportunities for all of you. Let's leave the federal side and move on to the states. Remember that first slide earlier that states supply about 45% all public K-12 education funding. In fact, in the last several years, about 20% of all state revenue have gone to the systems. That's second only to the dollars that states currently are spending on Medicaid. The good news is that 33 states consider FY13, the outlook for FY13, to be stable. For the states FY